first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to Manal for agreeing to join us for this Friday Hangout. Last week, we did a hangout with Saeed Taji Farouki, who is a Palestinian-Egyptian filmmaker, and he's also a trustee on the board of the Arab British Centre. So he was a bit of a guinea pig, and it went really, really well. We were very happy with how the session went. I'll just give you a bit of an overview of how we're going to run things today. This has been billed as an informal hangout, and that is really what we want it to be. Myself and my colleague Amani, introduce yourself, Amani.
Hi, hello, hi. I'm Amani Hassan. I'm the program director at the Arab British Centre.
And Becky Harrison.
Hi, I'm the events and communications officer. So I've probably emailed you all already. So hi.
So we will get the introduce Manal. We'll get the conversation started. But if we really want this to be a participatory session. So please write questions to us. There's a chat at the bottom. If you click on that, you can type questions, and then I will monitor those on the side and pick out the questions, and you can at that point unmute your mic so you can join in the discussion. Yeah, so we'll just generally keep mics on mute for the conversation so that we don't distract people as we're talking. But as a warm-up and an experiment as well, I invite you to unmute your mics and just tell us, like, shout out where you are based, like where you're calling in from.
Hi.
Hi.
London.
London.
Hello.
Cairo.
Cairo.
Sicily.
Sicily.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice.
You really have reached
London. London.
Adelaide in Australia. Wow.
Stonehenge.
Okay, maybe
Jerusalem.
Fantastic. This is amazing. Thank you very much for doing that. If you could please now mute your mics so we can get started. It's so nice to see people from Scotland, Doha, Leeds, Adelaide. Wow, this is amazing. We're really looking forward to snowy Sicily. Wow. Excellent. Okay then. Well, so my name is Nadia Sabai. I'm the Executive Director of the Arab British Centre, and we are joined today by Manal AlDowayan, who is, I'm going to introduce her, so forgive me for reading a little bit off my other computer here, but Manal, you probably have seen her work. She needs very little introduction from us, particularly at the moment. We've seen her a lot, if you are like us and obsessive about Instagram. But Manal's work has long explored the status of women in Saudi Arabia and bears witness to the cultural transformations taking place in the kingdom. Manal, I'm not sure, but if you know that I first became aware of your work in about 2005 because I was a minion at the British Council, and you had some beautiful black and white photographic prints in a British Council exhibition, which the title
Common Ground is called Common Ground.
Common Ground. And I was very, I loved the works then, and was very excited when I joined the Arab British Centre in 2015, because we have two of your prints at the Arab British Centre from your I Am series, which was, we have one print called I Am a Petroleum Engineer and one which is called The Choice. And this series explores sort of highly skilled working women in Saudi Arabia, and they are amazing. And I'll put a link to the series when I finish talking so people can have a look at those. Manal is well recognised for her work in sound and sculpture. You've probably seen one of her participatory installations called Suspended Together, which is a piece made of 400 doves, am I right?
200.
Manal? Sorry?
200.
300, okay, but well, and Esmi-My Name, which both of those pieces came out of workshops working with women in Saudi Arabia, and I will put some links to those in the side so people can click through. But more recently, this is maybe where people have seen you quite a lot recently, you've been doing some work in AlUla for the Desert X sculpture outdoor exhibition. So maybe we can start with that. Could you tell us a bit about the works that you created for Desert X, and a little bit more about your time in AlUla?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I'm happy to keep you company on your lunch break, which is basically moving from one room in your house to another. That's break, a lunch break. These are interesting times, and these are interesting conversations we're going to have today. To start off with Desert X is like saying, talk about life right before the coronavirus hit the world. It was a completely different time. It was a time of fantasy and happiness, I guess. But in reality, Desert X was sort of a big project that I've never done before, which is one of the largest land art pieces I've made. It was very challenging, both conceptually and basically the landscape was the main challenge, trying to build an artwork in a landscape that doesn't care. Today's going to be a sandstorm. Today's going to be a sandstorm. You go home and you wait for the sandstorm to be over. And that was sort of the case that we sort of learned, that the environment is the boss here. There was also challenges in the press where the American side of the press sort of didn't like the idea of Desert X coming into Saudi Arabia. And so as artists, we were not just making artwork in a peaceful kind of state of mind, but in reality, we were negotiating borders, negotiating stereotypes, and also negotiating what it means to boycott culturally other countries just because of the language of the politics does not apply to you, or you do not agree with it. So these are things that sort of kept coming up as the background, but the artwork itself was produced in a way that I wanted to create an artwork that when it came to AlUla, it made sense to its local residents who do not have any museums or galleries or art fairs or all that stuff. So I didn't want them to feel alienated from these artists that have landed in their town. We did try our best as artists to create systems of connecting with the local communities. So me and another artist from LA, Shireen Girgis, she's originally Egyptian. We did workshops with women artists in AlUla, and we reached out to the larger community. We did about 3 workshops. We even brought them on site during the build. And it was our way sort of to give back to the community. But I thought to make an artwork that required more of a physical interaction rather than just, looking at a conceptual work and trying to assess art history and all that stuff in your head. Instead, just go and jump. That was the idea. I also didn't want to make anything visual. So there's no really, the artwork is not an artwork. Yeah, it's just flat. When you look at the mountain. So my artwork, let me just start from the beginning. The artwork is a series of 12 different sized trampolines inserted in a valley of mountains, and they are underlit, and when they are lit they become transparent and look like pools of water. And they are the artwork title is Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and it addresses the idea of water scarcity in AlUla. Specifically where all the underground water reserves have been depleted throughout thousands of years of people trying to, create farms in the desert. And so water has run out, and when rain comes, these puddles usually form in AlUla. And these puddles usually last for a very, very long time, allowing, the animals, humans to make use of the water. And the kingdoms that developed through 5,000 years and the trade routes that sort of curved into AlUla were only because of water. There was water for, the caravans to stop and replenish themselves and their animals. Now this water has run out, the puddle itself that I used to observe for at least a full day after it rains, today only lasts just a few hours and it disappears. It sinks into the sand because there's no underwater reserves to keep it floating on the top surface of Earth. And so these trampolines sort of reference this humble puddle that I speak in her voice because the puddle in Arabic is a feminine. So she is saying to us, you know, take a moment and look at me and think about my existence, because now you see me and tomorrow you may not.
Well, we were so upset that we didn't get to come to Desert X. It looked absolutely incredible. Amani was due to go to AlUla after the Red Sea Film Festival, but of course that was another time.
I wonder if there's anyone here that was able to see that anyone in the conversation that went to AlUla for Desert X, or who has been to AlUla ever. No.
I've been to AlUla, but I did not see the exhibition, sadly. Hi.
I mean, maybe for those who don't know maybe very much about AlUla, do you want to say very briefly about a bit about it?
Well, AlUla is a very tiny town in the north of Saudi, between Medina and Tabuk. These are the main cities. So like the people that live in AlUla, when they want to go really fashion shopping or buying TVs or something, they would drive out to Al-Medina or Tabuk. So it's a town, literally. Basically has very basic necessities, but it's also a place where a historical site exists, which is Mada'in Saleh, which now has been, the name, it's gone to the original name, which the Nabateans used to call it, was Al-Hijr. In English, they say Hegra. And these are tombs that have existed for about 5,000 years. And there are 3 kingdoms that created themselves on top of each other. So first you have the Dadanites. They're a very religious culture and used AlUla as their spiritual grounds. Then you had the Lahyan, which was a trading tribe that became very, very powerful. And then the Dadanites, which are the last ones, sorry, not the Nabateans, were the last ones. And they're the ones who built the tombs in Petra. So I believe in Petra, there's 40 something tombs. In Saudi, there's about 132.
Wow. Amani has,
yeah.
Sorry, Amani's very helpfully posting links in the chat on the side. So do click on them so you can see Manal's work in situ. I mean, it's funny. I mean, just thinking that, I mean, just because Amani was supposed to be in Saudi a couple of weeks ago. We were supposed to be in Kuwait right now for our other project with Emi, who's joined us in this call. But yeah, it feels like a completely different world. I mean, how have the last few weeks been for you?
Yeah, this is something that I talked to you guys earlier when we decided to get this conversation going. Is that I think I felt like I couldn't even talk about my artworks. They're part of the past, the new, which is now the present, because the future has also been sort of disrupted for us. I thought that we needed to speak about the present more, because I feel today, not always, but just today, I feel like anything before the coronavirus changed the world are irrelevant in this conversation. I think the majority of creatives and artists, and maybe everybody, is sort of questioning what is the present and how do we deal with the current now. We cannot even think of or after, just now. And so it's been a very interesting time. Cancellation.
Oh, we've lost.
You've lost me?
No, you're back now.
Oh, sorry. So, plans that have been canceled, exhibitions, artworks that have didn't yet make it through to the completion phase. And dealing with that has been quite complex.
Yeah.
And I think these efforts of sort of us as creative communities to gather and talk about is very, very important right now. And I can't tell you how much podcasts and, for example, the Art Dubai News Hour, and seeing colleagues and friends and sort of speaking about this together is very interesting. How we're moving the conversation into a group setting online, and the discussion is really about the conceptual ideas that sort of develop in these kind of moments of transition.
Yeah, I mean, we had I think pretty much all of our conversation we had earlier was about this time, and I think we didn't come to any conclusions because, well, we just can't come to any conclusions at the moment. For the Arab British Centre as well, every waking moment is like, what does this mean for us? We've had to close our doors. We are going to be impacted by a loss of income. Funders are already contacting us to say we might not be able to work with them in the future because their situation has changed. So for us, as you rightly pointed out earlier when we were speaking, like, we're an organization and we are secure as staff within an organization, and we can work together to think through how we will manage this. But for artists, it's a very different scenario. I mean, like losing income, your projects not knowing what's going to happen. And like you said earlier, we don't know, projects that you were going to release or you were just about to launch, but actually when they can be launched, will they be still relevant? What will we look like?
I was planning a solo show for May this year, and I was preparing artworks that sort of continue my conversation from my solo show from last year with Sabrina Amrani Gallery. I was going to do the show in Jeddah. And I felt that it was time for these artworks to come and create the conversation in my home country, in Saudi Arabia. And last week I spoke to the gallerist, Mohammed Hafez of Athar Gallery, and I told him, I just don't feel it's right to present anything at this point, other than sort of, giving everybody a big group hug. What are we, you cannot, I just don't feel it's right to put up an artwork right now and then have a gallery sort of contact collectors. It's a very different mindset, that we were sort of on this wheel of ways of doing things and traditions, and how do artists think about exhibitions and presenting their work? How do gallerists think about talking to artists about creating a commercially viable exhibition? And the audience, the people who attend these exhibitions, whether it's young artists or collectors or curators or researchers, you cannot do it. In my opinion, it cannot be done right now. It's a different time. We need to readjust the way we think about things and how we approach things. And so we've both agreed, me and Mohammed, to delay, because this is a time of reflection and conversations and understanding what is happening. Yeah. It's a very difficult time for artists. And you mentioned something very important, which is financial stability and support. And I think this is really a very difficult time for a lot of freelancers, creatives, and artists. I have not been, projects that I've been making and sort of producing are halfway through, and the payments have not come through to, when you're sort of in the middle, you're like, fine, I'll pay this, and a check or an invoice will come in, and it's not, everything has stopped, including money being paid out to people who are doing ongoing projects. And how long will this stop happen? And how will the ripple effect, because I have, I've hired other people, I have assistants, I have a fabrication company. How do these people get paid if I'm not being paid? And so these are times that people really have to think seriously about supporting artists. The governments need to look at this too, insurance, think broader than just the simple make an artwork and exhibit it at this, right now. It's hard.
and that's something that we're thinking about a lot at the Arab British Centre. I mean, myself and my colleagues, we've been talking about this on a daily basis. We've also been hit with like sort of lack of income and lack of sort sort of funding, so we have to think about, you know, how we can do that, and how we can release some funds so we can, you know, continue to commission works and continue to work with artists, and perhaps in this way digitally, and reach
Positive
people.
side of the story, we're all very, very creative people. I am 100% sure we will rise, we will survive this.
Yes.
And we'll come up, you know, already these solutions are, you know, the first reaction was the art fairs created these online rooms. I didn't visit them personally because I was still suffering from, oh my God, coronavirus has arrived. I was not in the mood to look at gallery exhibitions, but you know, they immediately reacted. You guys reacted by creating this space for conversations. Art Dubai got canceled and they created another kind of engagement. I think we'll come through this, but it's a very interesting curve of learning, understanding ourselves, and maybe accepting that things are going to change forever.
Yeah. This is a good opportunity for me to invite questions. Like, please guys, either type it into the sidebar or raise your digital hand, and we will make sure that we come to you. But I mean, we were chatting a bit earlier about these transformative moments, and I think, and we all agree that there's been quite a lot of transformative moments in the last 10 years or more. Could you say something about how changes in Saudi Arabia have, you know, had an impact on your work, and the way that you're engaging with the creative community back at home?
Definitely. We were talking about this moment in time feeling like, well, the ladies that invited me to the hangout were quite young when this happened, but the Gulf War in 1991 was really, this is a lot of people who went through the Gulf War feel the same about, the feelings are coming back. So this experience feels familiar to them, being isolated, not knowing what's going to happen. But another transformative moment was, I think, September 11th, where the whole world was watching together what was happening. I think also for me, I had stayed in Cairo doing an artist residency at the Townhouse Gallery during the Arab Spring, when the revolution was happening in Cairo. And I was just in the midst of it. I never made any artworks from that experience in Cairo because it was just too overwhelming psychologically and emotionally. But yes, these transformative moments are very similar to now. Now, I have artworks that, most of my artworks that I make, for some reason, start off as contemporary, very present, but within a couple of years, they become a document of a moment of transformation. And you have one of these artworks, I think The Choice, I'm not sure if it's the woman with the steering wheel.
Yeah.
So this artwork was made sort of as a protest or as a statement about women not being allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Now women are driving, and this artwork, where does it stand in this transformative moment? And what does it say about the past and the present and the future? Suspended Together, The Doves, which you mentioned, was made to address the guardianship role of, guardians of women, or being treated as secondary citizens for life. And now, just this year, this rule has been removed, completely erased. No more permission from no male guardian. You don't need guardianship to do anything in Saudi Arabia. And where does this artwork now sit in this conversation? And do we make, what do artworks made during this period say about now? And how do they feel once we're done? I hope one day we're going to be done with this coronavirus. It'll be a story that we tell our grandchildren maybe. But what are the artworks that are going to be coming out of this time? And what will they mean once the pandemic is history? And does it lose its meaning? Does it gain a new meaning? And this is sort of something that I address with my artworks. What are the new meanings that you can get out of these artworks? What kind of stories can you sort of create in your mind when you look at them?
Yeah,
You don't know?
Yeah, well, no, that's there. It's very interesting, and I think the first thing that just came to my mind is like, I mean, do you think those artworks, in some small but collective way, with other, no, like, do you think that they contributed to the change that followed them?
Absolutely not.
No.
I always say, you know, this whole romantic. I don't think anybody in the art world believes this. I think people outside of the art world love saying it, like art can change the world. But everybody that works within the art world understands. You know, obviously there's a lot of efforts. You know, not everything. Something impacts somehow. Like this conversation maybe is an amazing gesture, but in reality. I was sort of more of an observant.
Okay.
And these artworks really, and when I tell you, because you asked me about the transformations in Saudi Arabia and what they meant, and to tell you the truth, as a person that lived through the toughest times towards women's rights in my country and now living the best of times, or getting there, it feels like we lived in a different world before.
Yeah.
And something happened, a switch, you know the song Switch Switch. This is and then suddenly things are different. Women are in the public sphere. Their faces are all over the newspapers. The sort of the campaign of the country is very women oriented. I was even speaking to my younger brother about job opportunities. He's like, job opportunities are only for women right now.
Oh, wow.
Imagine that kind of conversation today, and compare it to just about 5 years ago, where, you know, only when I was working in Saudi Aramco, 3% of women in Saudi Arabia were employed. 3% of 25 million population is very, very small. And now everywhere you go in Saudi Arabia, curators, organizers, coordinators, PR agents, consultants are all women that are incredible. They were just there, just their potential is not tapped. Anyway, so just looking at the different two worlds that existed, and the artworks that stand in these transformative moments, and what do they mean? They sort of, I don't know, are they the chapters? Are they like the bookmarks? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you've inspired lots of questions, so I'm going to start with Katie Logan. She said, I love what you said about trying to create art for Desert X that makes sense to and engages local residents. Do you know very much about what this moment has looked like for the communities in and around AlUla? How has their life transformed?
Well, yes, because I've been, I'm a little obsessed with AlUla. I love AlUla. I've been there 14 times. I've lived there for long periods of time. The women, I'm the gossip of AlUla. When I got married, I married a Canadian. And when I called in last month to book a driver, and I told the driver, my name is Manal AlDowayan. He's like, of course, we know you, Manal. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, my cousin drove you the last time you were here. You're the one that's married to the Canadian, huh? So obviously, I've become the gossip of the town, AlUla. But I have very close sort of relationship with multiple families that work there, that live there, and the women in AlUla and the people of AlUla are super, super generous. You don't understand. I cannot describe to you the true Bedouin generosity exists in AlUla. And so they would constantly send me food to my hotel. Every time they hear that I'm leaving, on my way to the airport, I at least receive 15 calls saying goodbye. You know, how could you leave town without telling us? That kind of, because somebody tells them that Manal is leave. It is a wonderful, wonderful community. And what is incredible about AlUla is that the UNESCO protection that they've placed for the heritage sites of Hijr, is that it includes the people of AlUla. So this is a really defining, important law that UNESCO has placed, that if we are going to protect the heritage sites, it also includes protecting the people that inhabit these areas, you know, the last inhabitants, which are people of AlUla. So yes, I have a very close connection with them. So therefore, I received a lot of videos and WhatsApp messages of them going out to the trampolines and jumping on them with their children, grandmothers. And I have that on my Instagram as a little permanent story. I don't know what they call them, little permanent.
Yeah, I will look out for that.
It's called, and it's under Jumping with Manal. So you'll see all the different people that have jumped on my trampolines. And it included a lot of these women. On top of that, when I was there, the workshops there were very intimate conversations, and it's a very important question that you ask, because a lot of the artists expressed that they felt left out, because we were 14 artists coming in, making artworks, and then leaving. Half of us were Saudis, well, not half, a third Saudis, half was Arabs, and then there are a few artists from America, from California. And so they expressed feeling left out. They expressed that they feel like they're not being supported or funded. And, you know, the usual, nobody loves us, nobody cares about us. And then me and Shireen really had very good debates with them about artist-led initiatives, creating your own opportunities, thinking about yourself and your practice without funding, which is something now we all have to address and think about, and sort of reverting, well, you know, after working in as an artist for 15 years, to be sort of reduced back to step one, which is, how do I get my artworks out there? This is something that, you know, and I had a debate with them about that. I think the community really loved the artworks. First of all, we as artists and curators, Neville, Ranim, and Aya, we all fought to make sure that this, the space where they were placed, the artworks, the big area, was free. So there's no payment for tickets or anything like that. And that made a huge difference. So it became sort of the Friday's like our Sunday in Saudi. So it's the Friday destination for families, because there's the Superflex swings, there's my trampolines, and, you know, there's a lot of interactive artworks that families just enjoyed, and it became a big park for them. And on top of that, I felt like, compared to all the other activities that were happening around them, like the concerts of the soprano from Spain, or Andrea Bocelli, and everybody, all these musicians that were coming in, the performances, there was theaters, beautiful theater that they brought in, was Jamil Buthaina, which is a very, very traditional love story that happens on AlUla. There was a theater, beautiful theater production there. But I don't think they connected to those things.
Do you think the future, sorry.
I think the main element that Desert X succeeded in is that it had no walls. It had no institutional feeling to it. It's their environment. And AlUla people are natural mountain climbers. They are one with the desert. They love hanging out in the outdoors, you know, putting up fires. So it just felt very close to them compared to theater and music that came from the West. This was sort of, yeah, I get it. And I can use my physical body to enjoy this artwork. And later on, they were all asking about the concept of these artworks. They're like, so what is this artwork about again? After they've physically, you know, engaged.
Well, hopefully, I mean, there's a few questions that maybe sort of lead on from what you've been talking about in terms of support. Sigrun from the Mosaic Rooms asks, as an artist, what kind of support and conversations would you wish having and hear from the art and culture institutions right now? And what is the advice for young and emerging artists in this time of crisis?
I need advice.
You need advice, okay.
I've never been through this before. I have no idea. I think, to tell you the truth, to be truthful, I did have a very big struggle all of last week. Like the past 2 weeks, I've been self-quarantining, and the emails were stacking up in my account, and I needed to switch off. And I think the biggest advice I give everybody is, listen, give yourself time to mentally adjust to what is happening. Sometimes your physical and your mental needs a moment of adjustment to understand, just to absorb, okay, if you want to cry, have a full day of crying. If you want to, go into complete physical mode, jog for 2 hours if you want. Like, just do something that what your body wants to do and what your mind wants to do, instead of what you think you're expected to do as a working, employed, responsible person. You can be a baby at this moment because really it is something that nobody understands. And I think we are one of the luckiest generations ever because we have this. Yeah. Like in 1991, it wasn't easy to talk to my family. I was studying in Bahrain then, and during the Gulf War, and then we had to move to Riyadh, and my mom was in the Eastern Province. We didn't have video conferencing, phone lines, and that's it. So this is something that I think everybody should understand. Advice for young artists is, you are the future. Basically, I think the ideas are going to come from you guys, because this is now your reality. We are the ones that have been working in a specific kind of system and routine, and we have to now squish everything we want and try to put a square into a circle. When children try to put a shape into a shape that doesn't work, we're going to try to mold what we already know and stick it into the new reality. Whereas young people, emerging artists, really have this opportunity of not knowing what was the system. They have an understanding of it, but they're not so ingrained that it becomes a habit, and they can come up with new habits. They can come up with new ways of sort of bringing their artworks to the people that they want to see their art. Galleries need to work with this kind of mindset with these young artists and understand, okay, so maybe online galleries don't work. Personally, I don't enjoy seeing the artwork that way. How else can I see it? I really enjoyed looking at video tours with artists. I find that very interesting, seeing the artists sort of moving. And this is, I think maybe, is it generational? Is that I cannot stand looking at, digital pictures and feeling the full impact of the artwork. Anyway, so for emerging artists, I think you guys are the future. You're going to lead us into something that is important. It'll help us survive as a community of creators and creatives.
Amazing. Well, the questions are going too fast for me now. So Angelina asked a question. I think we've covered it a little bit. So I hope you don't mind, Angelina. We're going to go on. Amani is asking, is the Saudi government having discussions about how they might continue to support local artists during this crisis? For example, both the UK and German governments have announced that they are releasing emergency funds in support of the arts. Is this conversation taking place in Saudi?
Well, you cannot compare the UK art industry, which is £100 billion industry, I think, and Germany, which has also a very deep-rooted, very high-income industry. Saudi Arabia, we were just beginning to establish stuff. We just, our Ministry of Culture is formulating and forming itself. Our Minister of Culture is beginning to engage with us as older artists, and we do have like initiatives that were sort of the grassroots that set up, sort of were the roots of things. For example, Edge of Arabia, 2139, the Saudi Art Council, all of these were community-based, community-funded projects. And then the Ministry of Culture has come in now and sort of given us a big boost and lifted us. The Royal Commission of AlUla also is under the Ministry of Culture. And so AlUla has become a very important art capital for us as Saudis, where you can make really incredible, crazy art. But we have one museum, in the Eastern Province, in my hometown, thank God, which is called Ithra. And we have a handful of galleries. That's it. And we were just beginning. So to have a conversation about how to support the artists is just right now. And Saudi Arabia has taken the lockdown very seriously compared to the UK and Germany. I'm not sure what's going on there, but Saudi Arabia is closed. Like, streets are empty. There are police in the street telling people to, giving fines for anybody that walks around. It's a very different mindset. It's an emergency mindset. So there hasn't been a conversation about these things. But that said, I think, this is not an ego thing, but I am a guinea pig for a lot of things to think about when putting together policies for artists in Saudi Arabia. For example, how do you tax artists? So we have a new tax law that was implemented in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. There's no guidelines for artists and the title artist. Either you're a business or you're like a financial earner, but where does an artist stand in this situation? So I negotiate these things with these institutions, and these institutions incorporate these negotiations into their process. So bottom line is, we're on the way. We have not reached what the UK has reached. I know that Germany has done an incredible announcement. We were talking about it earlier, where they are going to dedicate billions, that's a lot, to support their creative industries. And I think the UK now you can hear the rumble of, what are we going to do about this? Like, for example, the close down of theaters, the closing down of exhibitions and performances in the public. How do people claim insurance on these losses? And what do we do about, just a sweeping statement of saying, don't go, like the MP might have said, the PM said that avoid all theaters and cinemas. And then what do the cinemas and theaters do about, paying salaries?
Yeah, I mean, we actually felt that, because they didn't tell the theaters and cinemas and pubs to close. They said, don't go to them. So then if you go to your insurer and say, well, we're closing, it's our choice to close. Like, we were not told to close, it was our choice, therefore we are not.
There'd be a correction there somewhere.
Yeah, so
anyway.
we felt that we suffered that, because we chose to close, and we knew, we'd been in touch with our insurer, and they were like, if it's your choice, then we cannot,
Yeah, and how does this, so you're an institution, imagine an artist that has gone into contract with a subcontractor, like a fabricator, a person to build an artwork for me for thousands of pounds, and I'm contracted with somebody else that wants this artwork as a public artwork. They've stopped completely, because shut down, it's coronavirus moment, and I have a responsibility. Do I have insurance for this situation? I really doubt it.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Yeah. There's a few questions about this topic. There's also a couple of questions for AlUla, so I'm going to group those together. I'll go to Emmy's question. She says, thanks for talking. It's been really interesting hearing about your work and the approach to dealing with the crisis the world is in at the moment. I'm interested in whether you think it is possible to continue making work without referencing or responding to the crisis. I don't think it will be possible in some ways, but I would be interested in how you feel about it, particularly in regards to sculpture making, example, access to materials.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think this is something that different artists will deal with differently, because there are some artists that really do not deal with current and political issues in their artwork, and it's much more of a different journey. It's an internal journey. It's a mental, physical, and that is the space that they sort of think about. And I think this is something that we might see. Some artists might change the color that they use in their painting. Simple as that. Personally, I can't speak about other artists, but personally, I don't think my artworks are going to be the same as before this. it's just, for me right now, it doesn't make sense to continue a conversation that I had started. Imagine that you're talking to your friend on the phone about some kind of drama in your life. And then, you know, you get interrupted and somebody says something like, your house is burning down. And then you pick up the phone and finish up the conversation about your little drama. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to close down that conversation and pick up a new one. And obviously, I'm feeling very stressed out about this, and I'm sharing this openly with you guys. But you know, I've experienced this once before, and I said it. It was during the Arab Spring in Cairo, where I spent 3 months in a residency and left making not a single artwork. It was too emotional and too close to, I don't know, something in me that didn't allow me to make any artworks. And I really don't know what this moment is going to create for me.
Yeah. So Valeria has helpfully pointed out that the Red Sea Film Festival has announced grants for filmmakers, and she's put a link to the information, and we'll make sure that we collect any information that people send us and that we give out and put it around in an email at the end of the talk. We have a question from Vanessa. Hi Manal, I'm interested in how you started your life as an artist in the beginning. You mentioned working at Saudi Aramco. Was this a very different path?
Oh yes, absolutely. Another transformative moment. So when I wanted to study art from the very beginning, when I was graduating from high school. But back then, Saudi Arabia did not have, there was nothing called art industry in the region. There were no art fairs. I'm not that old, I'm not ancient, but our art industry is quite young. So it's, this is back in 91 is when I graduated from high school. And there was no galleries, no art fairs, no museums, and absolutely no artists that I can say, I want to be like her or like him. And so my father, who did not say he's never said that he's a feminist, but in my heart, looking at his actions, he was a total feminist. So my father believed in financial independence of his daughters. And he really believed in getting a degree and a job and not depending on anybody for money. And so he decided what me and my sisters were going to study. And he said, whatever you want to do after you get your degree is up to you. But for now, Manal is going to be a computer scientist. And the story. So I was like, okay, as long as I'm going to go study in America or leave home was good for me. And so I went on to study computer science in Boston. And then I got my master's in systems analysis in the UK, here in London. And during the time I was studying for my master's degree, obviously in between my bachelor's and master's, I worked for 5 years in Saudi Aramco. My father brought my employment papers on my graduation day in Boston. There was no like, let's take a break and have a breather. You work immediately. And while I was doing my master's degree here, I had already sort of developed my photography, and I wanted to pursue some art school studies. So my mother would sneak money to me without telling my dad, and I would pay for evening classes at Central St. Martin's. That was back in 2002. And what really saved me is when I came back from that sort of studying is that in Saudi Aramco, we have a dark room that the geologists used to use before digital photography existed. So the geologists would go out to the desert, photograph rocks, come back and develop these prints. And so we had a pristine, oil company will keep everything pristine because they can afford it. We had a pristine dark room that had 18 enlargers, humongous sinks. It was all mine to use. And so I lived in this space, and that's where the first prints, which now hang in the Arab British Center, were made, because it was sort of my escape from the day-to-day in Saudi Aramco and my job there. I ended up being the creative director, sort of controlling the branding and the visual messaging for the company globally. But it also killed my soul because I was I was working for an oil company that sort of the messaging was that you know, they weren't hurting the environment. I had to promote that, and it was very, very difficult. So in 2010, thanks to Delphina, who came to an exhibition I had in 2009 in Bahrain. So Bahrain was the only place that had galleries and museums for me. And Bahrain is right, my hometown is in the eastern province of Saudi, so you can drive a car over a bridge to the island of Bahrain. And there was a very, very close link between me and the Bahraini art community. And I had a show at Riwaq Gallery, which sadly now has closed down due to financial problems. Hopefully it's coming back. And Delphina came to the exhibition, bought an artwork, and invited me to do a residency. I didn't even know what a residency was. I was like, what do you mean? Do you want me to live in London? You pay me to live and do nothing except art? I couldn't comprehend it. And I remember I had mentioned it to my boss in Saudi Aramco, and he said, no, you can't take a 3-month, vacation. And so I submitted my resignation because I was so like, I'm going. And they didn't accept my resignation. They actually, accepted it as 3 months holiday, a business holiday. And I did my residency with the Delphina Foundation. Me and Delphina fell in love with each other, and she made me stay for another 3 months. So I spent 6 months doing that residency. I came back from that residency. 3 months later, I resigned in 2010 on Valentine's Day, February 14th.
Wow, and the rest is
I
history.
became a full-time artist, yeah.
Amazing, that's a fantastic story. I'm just conscious of time, and we have more questions, but Becky has asked a very good question to you and to any other artists who are here. So I will invite people to sort of put their hands up and respond. That's saying, so she's like, has a participatory element, sorry, do you see any opportunities or similar participatory projects in the digital realm? These are for artists who already, who already have a participatory element in their work. And do you think that the same connection can be achieved?
Yeah, this is a main sort of theme that runs through my practice as an artist, which is participatory art. And, I'm still investigating the ideas behind why I was attracted to the collective voice rather than a singular voice, and why I found sort of solace in the voices of many women. So I've done participatory projects throughout my career where thousands of women came in and built artworks that sort of addressed social issues that impacted their lives in Saudi Arabia. And suspended together, the doves were done online because it was one of my earlier works. So what I did was, this is before WhatsApp. So you remember the email forwards days where you send an email and then somebody forwards it to their group and it keeps going. So that's how I started as I sent an email explaining what the artwork is about. And I was like, who wants to donate their document to travel, the permission document, which really had the name of their guardian, their ID number, and like basically it would get the guardian in trouble. And 200 women responded like, I don't care, here, take the document of my guardian. And it became the artwork, and it was completely sent to me by email. All of them are scans of these documents. So it worked. And I know a lot of artists that do collective story gathering, voice, sound collections, all using online platforms. Being somebody of a computer science background in the past, I have no fear of technology. I believe that technology is our future. And I think it is incredible that we're all now sitting in this space from everywhere, from Italy, from UK, from Saudi Arabia, wherever, we're connected here. And because this is all because of technology. And you can only strive to make these spaces that are digital more important and more effective in our lives.
So we are coming to the end of our session. I'm there are people who've asked questions that we haven't got to. Rania, who's a teacher, she's waving, and she works for a primary school, a section of a school in London for Saudis and other nationalities. She would like to get in touch with you to see if you'd be interested in collaborating on an art lesson for her students. So I will
I'd love that.
email that to you. Malik and Skopulos had some
I'd
questions.
love it too. Thank you. I've sent you a private message, and can I put my email up on here, or how do we connect?
We'll email you.
Okay.
I think we must have your email address.
Yeah, you'll have it. Yeah.
Yes, so we'll get in touch with you and link you up. We had a few questions about AlUla, but I think we covered quite a lot. I didn't get to those. I'm sorry, guys. Martin Daltrey, who's British Council director in Jerusalem, said thank you, and it was an inspiring and wonderful escape from his office at home. And there's quite a few more questions, but I'm sorry we didn't manage to get to, guys. But if there's anything that you felt that we wasn't addressed, or you want us to sort of send a message to Manal, we'll make sure that we get it to her. I just want to say thank you so much for your time in your lunch hour. This has been really a break for us, and it's something that's really nice to see other people other than my husband anyway. So thank you so much. There's a few things I want to say just before we sign off as well. There's so many things. Number one, we're collaborating with Modern Films on the launch of Haifa Al-Mansour's film A Perfect Candidate, which was due for cinema release today in the UK. So we have sent out links to the film, so we have a discount code so that you can watch that film. And you are the first to know that we are going to be doing a Q&A with Haifa Al-Mansour at some point next week. She's in LA, she's very busy, so we're just trying to figure out the time for that. So please do watch the film and sign in to our Q&A next week. If any of you guys have anything that you want to plug or anything that you want us to share or promote, please put it into the sidebar so that we can collect all of those and share them on social media, and also get those out into our newsletter. I know that Mosaic Rooms have an event tonight between 7 and 8 p.m. They will be doing a live music session, Bedouin Psychedelic Treasures. So we can share information about that on our social media if we haven't already. So you should sign in tonight, and maybe we'll see you then as well. Becky and Amani, am I forgetting something?
Just a small last point about those Friday Hangouts, and we've been talking throughout this last hour about, the future of the arts and the future of freelancers and artists, and the cultural sector in general. So if you like our Friday Hangouts, and if you want to continue joining and supporting what we do, it's important for us that we support the artists as much as possible. So we wouldn't be able to do this without your support. So we do have a donate page on our website, and donations are welcome, whether they're the smallest amount to the largest amount. We're doing this with very little means, and it's very important for us that we continue to program as much as we can, and that we continue to support freelancers and artists and all the people that we work with. So thank you for joining today.
Yeah, well said, Amani. I mean, we had a lot of discussion around what institutions can do to support artists, and I know we didn't really concretely answer that. I think because we ourselves are trying to figure that out. We're very committed to supporting artists in the UK and from across the Middle East. We do that through commissions. We've in the past given small grants. We always pay artists when we work with them, in whatever way that we work with them, and we hope that over the next few months we will continue to be commissioning and engaging artists in the work that we do, so they can work digitally with us or in some way. So we you know, anything that we will receive you know, over the next few months will definitely be committed to that cause, and we'll do our best to support in these really difficult times. So the film mentioned was The Perfect Candidate, and we will send you the link. So sorry, I'm responding to questions. But,
you know that me and Haifa Al-Mansour used to work together.
Oh, really?
Saudi Aramco. She has the same journey as mine. She got out of that. And she's also the person who posed for one of my photographs. I am a filmmaker. So she's the person in that picture. And she lived up to her sort of destiny in that photograph. I also wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming and listening to me and keeping me company in this really, really difficult times. I encourage everybody to stay at home, even if you're going to murder your partner, your spouse, or your friend, but stay at home. And I wish you all health and protection and, you know, in this interesting times. Stay strong, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manal. Thank you. This was really wonderful. And I look forward to continuing the conversation, and stay tuned. Next week, we'll be hosting our third Friday Hangout. Guest will be announced next week. So do join us again, and have a wonderful isolated weekend.
Bye, everybody.